Hello, my name is Henry Kean. This is News Pulse. I know you've been waiting at UATV. Welcome to the Daily Show. Today in the episode, kill plan for Russians. Commander of drones, Madyar Brovdy, says Ukraine exceeds it 4 months in a row. In Israeli port, another Russian shadow fleet vessel with stolen grain has arrived. Ukraine imposes sanctions. Back to USSR, Russia is returning to a planned economy. Does Russia fall apart just as USSR did? I am even somewhat uncomfortable to give you these kind of recurrent news. Drones again attack oil refinery in Russia's Tuapse. More than 160 firefighters are battling a massive blaze out there. Local residents report more than a dozen loud explosions over the course of 2 hours. Swarms of drones were approaching from the sea at low altitude, and a fire broke out also in the city of Tuapse, where drone debris fell in one district with flames and smoke visible. According to posts on the Telegram channels, a maritime terminal and the oil refinery were primarily targeted in the attack. And also, the authorities have finally announced the evacuation of residents as so-called Putin's special military operation has returned back home to Russia. And something tells us it's only just the beginning. And indeed, it was confirmed. It's only the beginning. In an interview, the commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems, Madyar Brovdy, who made it a rare case, has told the BBC that such attacks will not only continue but escalate. Despite the recent surge in global oil prices, these deep strikes are very painful, I quoted, to Moscow, causing critical losses amounting to tens of billions of dollars out of Putin's war chest.
Putin extracts natural resources and converts them into blood dollars that they then direct against us in the form of Shahed drones and ballistic missiles. If oil refineries are a tool to make money that's used for war, then they are a legitimate military target, subject to destruction. Madyar Brovdy, commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, in an interview with BBC.
Still, Brovdy's unmanned systems forces make up just 2% of total quantity of Ukraine's military, but look at the quality. These days, he says, they account for a third of all targets destroyed. Amongst them, 30% of all drone strikes are targeting Russian troops on the ground. As Brovdy confirmed to BBC, this kill plan that he has for Russians, his soldiers are even exceeding. His crews are under direct orders to kill more enemy soldiers each month than Russia can recruit. That's over 30,000 men a month. Brovdy confirmed they've met their target for 4 months in a row by now. The next big step in Ukraine's defense, Zelensky orders 50,000 military ground robotic systems to be deployed in 2026. President had held a meeting of the staff of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief where robots were a key topic discussion. Zelensky stressed that production and supply volumes must be increased, noting that the contracted volume for this year already more than doubles that of last year's.
There is a task for the Minister of Defense of Ukraine and the General Staff. At least 50,000 unmanned ground vehicles this year. Everyone must understand, this is about saving lives. Logistics on the front line, evacuation of the wounded, combat missions. The use of UGVs is now expanding at the fastest pace, and this is exactly how it should be.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi visited Russia on Monday, April 27th for talks with Vladimir Putin. According to the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the mission that both terrorist countries call diplomatic involves meetings with several top-tier Russian officials. Key agenda items include the current status of negotiations with the United States, ceasefire developments, and related regional security issues. Iran's ambassador to Russia, Kazem Jalali, confirmed the anticipated meeting between Araghchi and the Kremlin's leader. Both sides will engage in consultations regarding any new initiatives as well as potential joint efforts, Jalali stated. The visit comes amidst repeated media and intelligence, including American, reports confirming that Russia provides Iran with intelligence used to coordinate strikes against U.S. forces in the Middle East. Despite these claims, the Trump administration has previously dismissed allegations of Russian assistance to Tehran, opting to accept the Kremlin's denials at face value. Well, maybe Donald Trump just does not have much of a choice. It's a free world, right? Any dictator can meet any terrorist, and any narcissist can just turn a blind eye to it, and not only to this, by the way. From Russia with love and dollars, Russian super yachts pierces the American blockaded Strait of Hormuz with ease. A super yacht that belongs to U.S. and internationally sanctioned Russian billionaire oligarch Alexei Mordashov sailed through the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday. Shipping data showed one of the few vessels to freely transit the blockaded shipping lane at the heart of the U.S.-Iran conflict. Nord, a 142-meter yacht worth over $500 million, left a Dubai marina at around 1400 GMT on Friday, crossed the strait on Saturday morning, and comfortably arrived in Muscat in the Sultanate of Oman early on Sunday, according to data on the marine traffic platforms. Well, some say it's because that oligarch is Russian, and Donald Trump just adores Russians. Nonsense. Obviously, you can be any nationality. If you have enough American dollars on your American bank, on your accounts, you can cross the strait that is blockaded by the American army, and the American president is happy to help you if you are sharing intelligence data with an American enemy who kills American soldiers in American war. Well, God bless America. It surely needs it. Now to more news. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said his country would continue to support Russia's policies and discussed bolstering military ties with Moscow, stated KCNA is happy to report on this, as analysts said such cooperation looked set to endure beyond the war in Ukraine. While Iran goes to Moscow, Moscow goes to North Korea. Russian delegation, including Defense Minister Andrei Belousov, attended a completion ceremony for a memorial honoring North Korean soldiers killed while fighting in Russia, in Kursk region, where Ukrainian forces engrossed in 2024. Belousov said he had agreed with North Korean officials to put military cooperation on a stable, long-term footing and to sign a cooperation plan covering the 2027 to 2031 period. Later this year, Russian news agencies report on Sunday. The five-year cooperation plan points to preparations for the post-Ukrainian war period, said Lim Yul-chul, professor at the Institute for Far Eastern Studies at Kyongyong University of South Korea. This raises the possibility that the broad political, military and economic alignment is likely to continue even if the war ends, with the relationship entering the stage of an institutional alliance. Well, the paradox of a century really is while Iran, Russia, North Korea and China are strengthening their ties and getting stronger together against the United States under Trump in turn is joining them. Its natural-born enemies, lifting anti-Russian sanctions, letting Russian super yachts through its blockade, and just ignoring intelligence sharing between the enemies and observing carelessly anti-American alliances emerging before their very eyes. It's not just a blind eye turned anymore. I guess to miss such a scale of a problem, you'd probably need both of your eyes to turn blind. Israel has ignored and continues to ignore Ukraine's requests regarding a previous vessel, Abinsk, that already has unloaded wheat stolen by Russia from the occupied territories of Ukraine at an Israeli port. Later, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar stated that the Russian ship with a cargo of stolen Ukrainian grain had already sailed from the port of Haifa, so it was impossible to detain it. Well, if there are any signals that are coming through to the Kremlin quite well these days, then these are the signals of impunity. Now, yet another Russian shadow fleet vessel, Panormitis, carrying Ukrainian grain stolen by Russians, calls at the Israeli port of Haifa. It unloads the Ukrainian grain there. A crisis may arise if this is the case in relations between Ukraine and Israel.
applies in particular to grain stolen by Russia. Another vessel carrying such grain has arrived at a port in Israel and is preparing to unload. The Israeli authorities cannot be unaware of which ships are arriving at the country's ports and what cargo they are carrying. Based on information from our intelligence services, Ukraine is preparing a relevant sanctions package that will cover both those directly transporting this grain and the individuals and legal entities attempting to profit from this criminal scheme. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, on X.
Well, if you can't make USSR to come back to Russia, Russia is coming back to USSR. The Kremlin has announced that Russia is returning to planned economy, the system under which the Soviet Union operated for over 70 years and as a result has fallen apart. Putin is funneling all available funds into the war against Ukraine, and while the total gap between regional expenditures and revenues has surged to 2 trillion rubles, Russia's economy is falling apart inevitably, just as it was the case in the USSR, because Russia is USSR. More in our story for you.
The situation with regional budgets is difficult, Russia's finance minister acknowledged at a meeting of the Presidium of the Council of Legislators. The total gap between regional expenditures and revenues has reached 1.9 trillion rubles. Regions that were previously donors have become dependent on subsidies. The main reason is the decline in corporate profit tax revenues. As a result, regional budgets have lost 480 billion rubles in income.
In the Komi Republic, corporate profit tax revenues have halved. In the Orenburg region, down by 40%. In Yamalo-Nenets Autonomous Okrug, by 38%. More than 30% of revenues have been lost by Tyumen region, Republic of Ingushetia, Republic of Karelia, Arkhangelsk region, and Kemerovo region. By the end of the year, industrial production declined and construction volumes fell in half of the regions, while every third region recorded a drop in agriculture. The number of regions with declining investment doubled, from 23 to 46. Consumer demand slowed almost everywhere, in 80 regions, from the Moscow Times publication.
Due to massive wartime spending, the government lacks funds for investment in civilian sectors of the economy. Even large Russian enterprises are forced to cut staff or send employees on unpaid leave. The crisis has also affected industrial giants, including Russian Railways, Gaz Group, Kamaz, and Avtovaz. The diamond mining company Alrosa has reduced staff not directly involved in extraction by 10%, reports Reuters. Companies are unable to overcome the crisis on their own.
When these payments decline, local budgets automatically suffer, and the federal center has no means to replenish them. Regions appeal to the center for funds, but are told there is no money and are advised to borrow from banks at rates of 20 to 25% annually. This process was observed throughout last year, and at the beginning of this year, it has intensified due to worsening employment conditions, reduced working hours, and what economists call hidden unemployment.
By the end of March, overdue wage arrears in Russia had risen to 2.13 billion rubles, according to Rosstat. Many companies may be forced to carry out mass layoffs this summer, according to forecasts by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine.
As of now, some employers are trying to avoid mass layoffs by reducing the working week to 3 or 4 days. However, such measures are temporary and cannot compensate for deep structural problems. In the absence of economic recovery, businesses are highly likely to resort to more radical solutions. An additional negative factor is the seasonal decline in business activity during the summer, which may accelerate layoffs across various sectors. This creates a risk of rising unemployment in Russia in the coming months. From a publication on the website of the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine.
The crisis is also reflected at the federal level. In the first quarter of 2026, the budget deficit increased to 4.6 trillion rubles. Even the temporary rise in energy prices due to escalation in the Middle East did not stabilize the situation.
The Russian economy has lost its margin of safety. It is now on the verge of operational instability, where financial disruptions can begin to affect production and the overall economic process. The current high oil prices may provide temporary relief for a month or two, but they will not fundamentally change the situation.
The government will cover the deficit at the expense of ordinary citizens. At the beginning of 2026, amendments to the tax code came into force in Russia, immediately affecting the cost of the consumer basket. In addition, the Customs Service began imposing additional duties on goods from so-called unfriendly countries, with rates of up to 50%. Clothing, cosmetics, and non-food goods from more than 50 countries are expected to rise in price by at least 15 to 30%. Among the latest initiatives are the introduction of VAT on foreign goods sold via marketplaces, the legalization of online casinos with projected annual revenues of 100 billion rubles, and an increase in property taxes, reported by Andriy Dimitrenko, UATV News.
Well, that's it for today. I'm Henry Kean. Thank you so very much for your time and for your effort and for your support. We always need it, and we appreciate that a lot. Please also comment, like, and please subscribe to our channel. Whatever that next day is holding for all of us, UATV will be there to keep you posted. Stay safe and tuned for more. Goodbye.